Good morning. We're still in Africa. The sun is shining, beautiful. We haven't got a little cricket today. And I'm sitting in this exquisite chair, hand-beaded, beautifully hand-beaded chair. Imagine beading all of these parts with human hands. An amazement, really an amazement. Grateful. I'd like to talk to you today, welcome, about the changes going on in the brain, which I feel will be affecting you. Now, the brain is, of course, quite a complicated mechanism, and it is a transmitter and an anchor for mind. And I'd like to talk about 2 out of 3 areas. First will be the pons and the medulla oblongata, which is behind our head here, our old reptilian brain. Secondly, the pineal and the new circuits which are forming in the pineal at the moment between the pineal and the pituitary. This morning just about the pineal. And then thirdly, in part 2 of this, to talk about the temple area and the temporal lobe. Temple here, temporal lobe going back there. Now, the pons and medulla oblongata are back of head, and they are seriously affected by frequency shifts at the moment. And you may have neck ache, and you may find that the back of your head underneath the occiput, where the soft bit turns into the hard bit of the cranium, the skull, you may find that aches sometimes, and it may ache in different places, physical places on the planet. Now, I call this the peace department, the medulla oblongata and the pons, because they are the old chemistry, they are the old brain, they're to do with old energy, and old energy is actually stored there for those who are a bit wackier. Really, old energy and old memories are stored there. And the pons and medulla oblongata are to do with our involuntary system, our sympathetic system, which is about nervous system, which is about sleep and breathing and swallowing and choking and vomiting and hearing and equilibrium. And that area it's contained at the moment, but we are going to, amazingly and wonderful for the peacemakers, we are going to drop this fight or flight system in our body. It is actually going, thank heavens, with the new frequency and the changes that are coming to the body and to mankind. Now, at the moment, you may also feel this area is very stiff. It's because it's taking quite a lot of hammering. Now, the old fight or flight mechanism is very ancient, and it was about our old self before we were more evolved. And arguably we shouldn't need it anymore, but of course we have stress through our work, and we have stress because we don't get on very well, and we have stress because we're war making and all these other things. And as this wonderful wave of change comes through, peace will come and change will come, and it is led by pioneers in consciousness. The pineal is a temporary receptor to high frequency, particularly in the night. And the frequency that comes in is fast and furious, and there's sometimes a lot of it, depending on what's going on out here. Now, the frequency coming in is coming into the pineal, and it's coming down here to the old mastoids in a wonderful triangle. It's coming to the old mastoids, which are behind the ears, and the mastoid bones are not really bones, they're spongy cavities, really, which were fabulous for the old frequency. They're very good at grounding old, heavier frequencies. And they took that energy down into the back of the neck and into the spinal cord, which is a sort of barometer. You know, your head is a transmitter, the brain is a transmitter for mind. Where else would mind be? Or the transmitter for mind be, but in your head. And of course, the head goes into the spinal cord. Now, there's quite a lot of anguish at the moment. People are getting disrupted nights, more of that in a moment. And the number one difficulty is that the pineal is a temporary receptor until the temples here, interesting name, until the temples become the proper receptors of our high frequency. And they're lovely and fine, you know. No offence to the lovely mastoids, but the temples are lovely and fine, and they're going to be our receptors. Look how easy that geometry is. It's wonderful. Now, as the pineal is receiving upgrades in the night, sometimes in the day, but a lot in the night, you may wake up and you may not feel very well, and you might hear a squizzling sometimes in the ear, and you think you've got maybe a little trapped something, don't know, or a temporary ear buzzing, but you're actually getting your upgrade into the pineal, and the pineal is therefore rather knocked about. It doesn't like being a receptor at the moment, and while it is being a temporary receptor, it is affecting the whole body. Now, the pineal. The new frequency is coming in to the pineal, and there are new circuits being made between the pineal and the pituitary. More of that later. They are both regulators of the endocrine system, big time. And the endocrine system, also for another day, is changing. The endocrine system, particularly in women, is changing. And I think I've mentioned before that you may have lumps and bumps sometimes on some days, and you may be worried about them. Try not to. Always go to a doctor if you're anxious, but the bumps, particularly under the arms, do come, and then they go again. Everything is just changing. Now, the pineal is also to do with our involuntary actions and responses, but for me this morning, I want to say that the most important thing is that it is being knocked about, and sometimes I have felt my pineal beating in my head, which would probably unnerve most people, but try not to be anxious. The most important thing is that the pineal secretes melatonin. Now, melatonin, not to be confused with melanin in the skin, melatonin is a hormone which secretes in the night, ching ching, bells ringing. It starts at about 9 p.m. and it travels through the immune system because it is really one of our basic elements in our body. We were just talking about the pons and the medulla oblongata, and that they were the old reptile brain. Now, melatonin is the thing that allows us to know that we're in the summer or the winter, the day or the night, and if we were a bird and or many other insects and creatures, the melatonin hormone tells them where they are. It is where the homing device lives. Now, melatonin is so serious because it is a transmitter. It is a chemical transmitter. It is involving electricity, and it is the first signaller in the body. It is the first transmitter going through the body. Now then, when our high frequency is coming in the night, it is upsetting the melatonin balance. Now, if the flow or the quantity of melatonin is affected, and especially if it is reduced by anything, the response of the body is to experience depression, and also, in some cases, a rapid and fluctuating heartbeat. Now, as the pineal is the receptor of high frequency energy at this time, when we are busy trying to sleep and we have an influx, an uptake, an upgrade of high frequency energy, the melatonin levels are severely affected. And many people I've treated over quite a few years, quite a number of years, have a fluctuating and rapid heartbeat in the night. So what happens immediately? The body goes into panic. You could be the most stoical and grounded person in the world, but if your heart suddenly starts beating rapidly in the middle of the night, you have to be pretty strong not to panic and then make the situation worse. I have known several people, elderly people, feel very anxious about this, and they've gone to their doctor quite rightly, and nothing has been found. These are enormous times of the body's evolution, and the difficulty is twofold here. The heart, which, it stretches all the way here and to the back. Remember, the heart has a back. The heart is actually changing. It's ridding itself, especially in those who are consciously endeavouring to change their behavioural and thought patterns. It is, and who are consciously shedding the wounds of the past, the agonies of the past, clearing. The heart can go into spasm, and it can go into spasm at any moment. And I remember this happening to me a long time ago, 20 years ago, and I went to my GP and said, please help me. And he gave me an ECG and it was fine. Now, you must always go to a doctor if you're worried, or particularly on these matters, but the heart is just loosening up here. And you can just rub this little bit of sternum here to release it often, and breathe and expand. And as old memories, and remember the cells, Lipton again, 1995, as the cells start to shed their miserable memories actually, and there's a lot of that happening at this time, and in the earth itself. As that happens, there can be a feeling of enormous contraction and spasm here. I haven't had a heart attack, thankfully, but it does feel very strong and can be a bit like a digestion. Now, this can happen in the night, particularly with a fluctuating heart, and your heart is fluctuating because your melatonin levels are being challenged by the high frequency coming into your pineal, which secretes the melatonin. Now, the thing about melatonin is that it also affects the immune system. Now, it affects the immune system not simply in potentially creating, if the levels change, in creating morning depression for you, which will probably go and does go, and a rapid heartbeat. But melatonin is a massive broad spectrum antioxidant. Now, some of you will definitely, I'm sure many people, especially women, maybe have heard of antioxidants. They've been very, very fashionable since Denham Harmon in, I think, 1958. He's thought to be the father of antioxidants. He discovered them or noted them or whatever, that they are wonderful things for the body. Now, antioxidants are feel-good factors. They work with serotonin, and what they do is they smash up free radicals. And free radicals are not very nice. They are keen and willful, it seems to me, biologically willful, to create our aging. They are responsible for our aging, and that was the work of Denham Harmon, I think. And so they age the body. They are degenerative in tissue. They make tissue unhappy and lurch towards death, I guess. And they seem to be willful in damaging cells. Now, melatonin affects them because it creates an antioxidant which cancels out, balances these free radicals. When melatonin is upset, as it is upset potentially at the moment by the high frequency coming in to the pineal, the upset of melatonin in the night, and all of this wonderful chemical messenger transmitter system being compromised somewhat, then free radicals can gang up. And so it is quite an expensive time to the body just now.